Hi, everybody. Today is the first of a multi part episode arc on the power and the importance of natural hair. And I'm so pleased to welcome today Diane Da Costa, who is a veteran and CEO of Simply Beautiful Companies. She is the co president of the Natural Hairstyle and Braid Coalition with Diane Bailey, who we're also going to have on the show. Welcome, Diane.
Thank you. Thank you, Corinne. Thanks for having me.
Such a pleasure to have you.
Yes, thank you.
And we go back a little bit, so
Yes,
it is a great opportunity to talk about some of the things that I may know about you, but also learn a couple of things new,
yes.
right? So, like my first question is, where did you grow up, and how did it shape your ideas about beauty?
Yeah, so I was actually born in the Bronx around Fordham Road area, and my family
Mm-hmm.
are Jamaican, so they came here in the 50s and they lived in Harlem. And then they moved to the Bronx where they bought a home. And my grandmother was actually
Okay.
an entrepreneur. She was a real estate. She bought a lot of real estate. She actually was a cosmetologist, and she didn't open up a salon, but she did everybody's hair. So that was really my
Right.
first introduction to hair through her and my sister, who at the time was the hairstylist for the family, and she's 9 years older than me, so she actually made me do my own hair because I would always complain a lot because my family is very diverse. So in Jamaica,
Mm-hmm.
it's many, one out of many, and
Right.
many out of one, or one out of many,
Right.
one love. So I have a lot of mixes in my family. Like my mother is actually Chinese, Jamaican, African, and Chinese.
Okay.
And my father, has different cultures in him in Jamaica. So my hair texture was always different than my sisters and brothers. They all had like wavy or curly, silky hair, where mine was more like my father's. It was,
Right.
coarser and coily and curly and coily and thick and big. So I always had to work a little harder at my hair. And my sister, my sister used to roller set our hair.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
So
yeah.
my hair never came out. My hair was always woo. And so I didn't like that. And, I would always complain about it. And she just said, well, you're going to learn how to do your own hair. So that was my introduction to just doing natural hair. And my family all had natural hair. Everybody had
Okay.
different textures of natural hair,
Textures.
from
Yes.
smooth and silky and wavy to coarse, coily, and afro coily. So the whole
Right.
gamut of the family, in an extended family, and everybody. I mean, we grew up around each other because my grandmother had several houses, and she would sponsor cousins and sisters and brothers, and we all lived in the same neighborhood. But also, the neighborhood that I lived in at the time was very diverse. I mean, my friends
Mm-hmm.
were Black, Hispanic, and Greek and Irish, and so it was always a mix, a melting pot of cultures that I grew up around. And but when I grew up, I always gravitated to the afro. I wanted to wear afro. I wanted to cornrow. As my cousins would sit across the stoop, and they would, like, my cousin would cornrow everybody's hair on the porch, and so I wanted
Right.
to do that. And I thought it was so beautiful. The afro was so beautiful, and I wanted to wear my hair like that or something like it. Something. I just wanted
Right.
to do something else, not just wear it whatever the way my parents or my sister wanted me to wear my hair. I think at like 9 years old, I had to start doing my own hair. But before that, I
Wow.
was already, playing with my dolls and cutting my dolls and corn and braiding my dolls and all of that. I mean, I look back and I have pictures of me with a scissor, a shear, and a Chrissy doll. You know, the ones that you pull the
Okay.
hair out at like 5 years
Yes.
old. So whether
Wow.
I remember it or not, I have pictures that tell me that that's what I.
So when did you think that this would be your profession?
So the crazy thing is like I always did it. I started cutting my mother's hair at 13, and then I started cutting all the neighbors and the neighbors. And when I went to college, I was cutting everybody's hair. But at 16, I was reading Essence and Ebony and Vogue on my stoop, and I always dreamt of. I remember I saw John Atchison's name on the side of
Yes.
the Essence magazine,
In the credit.
and I was just like, I want to do that one day. I wish I could do that. I want to do that. But that wasn't something that my parents would ever, consider me doing because,
Right.
I'm from a Jamaican family. So you had to definitely go to college. It was not an option. And you had to get your
Right.
master's and you had to be whatever I say, a doctor, lawyer, or Indian chief. That's what I always say.
Right.
So that was not something I aspired to do as a career. I originally studied accounting, believe it or not, because I'm
Oh,
like
wow.
a student in math. And, I went to Catholic school. I went to Catholic school my whole life. And I actually wanted to be architect because I was creative. I was,
Right.
drawing, sewing. I was the creative one, singing, all kinds of things when I was younger. And the, the, the school that I went to, Cardinal Spellman, the guidance counselors, which the school is, all white. There's a
Right.
handful, probably 10 in the whole, maybe 20 in my whole class who are black and Hispanic. So maybe a little more, maybe 50. I don't know. But you know what I mean. It's like five people in the class are black and Hispanic out of, 30 kids.
Right.
And the guidance counselors, of course, were all white. And, they were like, no, you can't be an architect. You don't even have a portfolio. You can't do this. Da, 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 da. And back then, I was just like,
In high school? Like
yeah, in high school.
portfolio. No. Okay.
And so at the time, I was just like, yeah, I don't know if I can do it, but I do not have a portfolio. So I believe them. I mean, I could
Right.
have whipped something up and applied. Who knows what would have happened,
Right.
if you just said, oh, well, try it. You know what I mean? But, it was more
Yes.
academics. Like you were going to be, a lawyer, a teacher, or whatever. I don't know. But I actually was very good in math. Like I was an A student in math and I love math. I don't know why I picked accounting, but so be it. I picked accounting. And my parents actually had a, my godfather was friends with like the largest black accounting firm in New York City. So, I
Okay.
mean, the pressure, I mean, I had a job waiting for me if I fulfilled this goal. And
Right.
so I did it. I went to college and I studied accounting, and it wasn't that it was hard. I just hated it. I hated everything
Right.
about it. I worked at an accounting firm in the summertime, and I was just like, oh, I can't do this. Yeah, so I changed my major to computer science. I don't know. Who knows why? Computers was the time, the thing. And then
Well, hot. They were hot at the time and new.
yes, it's like, oh, that's the new thing. You're gonna make a lot of money. And I mean, couldn't do that. I was like, I got to, whatever the point of coding and all of that. And it was like the first intro, maybe two courses of that, I was fine. But then when it got to the real nitty gritty, I was like, oh my God,
Right.
my brain is exploding. I'm like, I can't do this. But I was always doing hair on the side. I was
On the
always doing
side.
hair on the side in college and out of college. And I had a mentor who was a fashion designer, and she just said to me one day, Diane, why are you studying computer science? You are an artist. Why are you doing that? You need to be an artist. And I then changed my major because I was failing computer science. I was going to get a D.
Right.
And I'm just like, I can't get a D. I did get a D, but I changed my major and I changed it to marketing and advertising, which is more
Okay.
creative and more,
Creative.
the
Right.
advertising and the brainstorming and creating campaigns and all of that stuff. And then I was an A student, you know, but I still didn't. I was still doing hair. I was doing like fashion shows and doing hairs for fashion shows and all of that, and doing clients. And I got a job in marketing and PR, and I just
Okay. So that was your first job. So what? And this will be easy because now it makes sense.
yeah.
What did you learn in your marketing career that set you up for success as a hairstylist?
Well, I mean, I use marketing in everything I do now. I mean, if I
Right.
accounting and marketing was the road I had to take to own my own business, right? And
Yes.
even just all of the campaigns that I create, the fashion shoots, the marketing materials, and all of that was something that I love, and I apply it to my business. You know, every day I'm coming up with all types of campaigns, beauty campaigns, just marketing materials, how to promote yourself, and all of that. And getting into actual hairstyling was a hard decision for me to either go
Right.
into marketing, into beauty and cosmetic marketing, or music, because I
Right.
also love music. So and or go to cosmetology school and become a hairstylist. So I struggled.
So when did you make that decision?
I was, I think I was like 27, 27.
So you worked in corporate for a minute
Yes,
and then
yes.
made the
And I went
decision.
to cosmetology school while I was in corporate America working in
Okay.
PR and marketing and advertising. So I was dual, full time, like full time working, part time going to school. And
Right.
and then the light bulb hit me after I graduated. I said, well, I need to get out of here. I need to go do hair. I need to get a job where I can do hair. But I was still in that corporate mode. I really wasn't fully
Yes.
bloomed as an artist yet. And so I actually took a position as assistant. What was that? A manager of Black Hair Is the the
Oh, okay.
the hair
Yes.
the hair salons, the chain of hair salons.
Right.
But it was really a glorified front desk coordinator. So I was just like, what is going on here? In my mind, I was like, I'm coming from corporate. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to be a manager. I'm going to be running,
Right.
creating, doing all these things. I was like, these hairstylists were like ordering me around, telling me what to do, get them this, blah, blah, blah. I was just like, I need to be them at that point.
Right.
I said, I need to be a stylist, not a manager. Because even though I went to school for
Right.
marketing and management, I'm like, yeah, no, this is not going to work for me. So I then went off to start my career as a stylist, and I had to start at the bottom. So I knew some people in music, and they referred me to a salon called
Right. Did you work?
Britannica. Do you remember Britannica Salon on Lexington Avenue? I went there to be
Okay.
an assistant, because I knew I had to get my foot in.
No. I kind of know the name, but I don't remember it.
But Britannica and
Okay.
Andrea and Britannica was the name of the salon at the time. And
Right.
I had an in, you know, somebody referred me to Andrea, one of the owners, and
Okay.
she actually told me I cannot be an assistant. I couldn't get the job because I had a college degree and that I wasn't going to stay there.
Right.
So she's not going to hire me. I was like, I don't understand. I want to be an assistant. I want to learn under you. I was far from owning a salon at that time. I wasn't even thinking about it at that point. And yeah, I was devastated because I was just like, I just want to be an assistant. I just want
Right.
to shampoo hair. That's all. I just want to learn. So anyway, I moved on, and then
Right.
I started training with some other like head stylists in New York, and I got another assistant job at Rubens. They were famous for pressing at the time. They called it something else, but silk pressing, and they used to do
Right.
the ponytail braid. It would be thick and long. So that's what they were famous for. And I started out as a front desk assistant and a boutique salesperson.
Back at the front desk.
They wouldn't even let me touch hair. Not like I was there for maybe I was there for maybe 3-4 months, and then I said, you know what, I'm gonna have a talk with the owner because like this is ridiculous. I need to shampoo people's hair. And Walter, I forgot his last name, but he was an older gentleman, and he studied under Sassoon. He studied like he was one of his vice presidents, but he was renting at the time. And he took me under his wing. And then he just started mentoring me and so on and so forth. And then I went out and got an interview with Knapp's, Ademola Mandela. So this is maybe 1 year
Wow.
after I graduated. It was moving fast. I got a position, a trainee apprenticeship with
I
Ademola
remember
Mandela.
Knapp's, yeah.
Yes, and so I
Uh-huh.
went there because I also the other thing behind my whole journey with being natural is I always wanted to lock my hair. And so I had cut
Oh, okay.
all of my hair off prior to that when I graduated from school at Knapp's. I lived in the Bronx and I went to Brooklyn and got my hair cut off. This was before I even became a hairstylist. So it was like
Right.
a full 360-degree moment when I actually interviewed and I got the apprenticeship. Because now I was going to be working at the place where I felt comfortable. Like I knew I cut my hair off. I knew I wanted to lock my hair and all of these things. So I was very excited to work there. And I did a barbering training program for 3 weeks and learned more technique of coiling and twisting and
Right.
locking because I had like my own experience from my family doing twisting and coiling and things like that. But
Right.
to master the technique, I had to train. And I was really dying to train under somebody. I needed a mentor. And that's very, very important. I firmly believe that mentors, for at least now 1 year, at least back then it was 2 years, for somebody to take you under their wing and just take interest in you and show you the correct technique. Because when I got
Right.
there, I was barbering because I was a cutter at this point. I had no formal training whatsoever, just beauty
Right.
school training, but I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
And I thought I was just like the best thing ever. So I went there with my clippers and I brought my cousin to be my model. And I just, started cutting and he observed everything that I was doing. But I took like almost, I think, 45 minutes to do this cut, maybe almost an hour. And it looked good. So he came over to me and he just said, that was horrible. I mean, I was crushed. And I said, why? What are you talking about? It looks good to me. And he said, you took an hour to do that cut. That cut, you have to do that cut in 20 minutes. And I was just like, whoa, okay, I see what you're saying. And I thought I wasn't going to get in because I was the only female. It was all guys. So,
Okay.
but I made the cut and they took me under their wing. It was three gentlemen, two who were the trainers, and then Adamola. And he would come on the floor occasionally and then watch you, and then he would gravitate to you and then give you pointers and tell you what to do. And I was just like, oh, what? I can't believe this. This man is like actually training me. So that was my
Right.
first introduction to the natural side of perfecting my skills as a cutter in
Right.
barbering and natural hair styling with twisting and coiling and all of that. And prior to that, I was an assistant in the Bronx with another hairstylist who taught me how to do the Marcel irons and how to do color and relax and things like that. But I didn't really want to do relaxing. I just wanted to color and cut. But I
Right.
gravitated to natural hair because I was actually going through my spiritual journey and my holistic eating and all of that. And I cut off all my hair and I actually wanted to lock. So I was gravitating to that field regardless. So when I got there, I they closed in like 6 months. You know, I did a few photo shoots and I worked with some celebrities and some artists, which was great. But
Right.
they closed in like 6 months. And now I had to find somewhere else to work.
All right. So, so what's really interesting is that, if you're not from New York, you don't know that back then, like the power of like locks and chops and
Yes,
knaps
yes,
and comic
yes,
kings. If you're
yes,
not from, like how powerful that, way before like the natural hair movement,
yes, yes,
it the New York had this amazing echo center
yes.
of natural
It
hair
was the Mecca.
that,
Like Brooklyn was the Mecca of all things natural and all these salons that were so beautiful and flourishing and so prosperous. And everybody had natural hair. Everybody. It was the thing to have. And I remember when I saw Knaps, like after I graduated, you know, I saw that those haircuts, and I was like, when I cut my relaxer off, because I had a relaxer from 11 to 25, and I said, I'm going
right,
to Brooklyn to Knaps. And it was all in Essence magazine at the time. So
right,
everything you knew
absolutely,
came from Essence, you know, everything. And, you know, I went there, got my hair cut, and I was just so happy to just be in the mecca of everything and being part of it and just getting that haircut at that time. And to end up there and
yeah,
then have to leave, now I was lost really because I thought I was going to work
right,
there for like at least 5 years or something like that, you know, or more.
right,
Who knows? I didn't know what was going to happen after that. But the interesting thing is, Essence was always in the mix of everything, you know. And I met
yeah,
Peggy Dillard at like an event. You
yes,
know, obviously we would go out all the time and network and things like that. And I met Peggy Dillard at
right,
an event, I think even before I started training at Knaps. And I told her, you know, that I was a hairstylist and I would love to work for her one day. And she said, you know, I was in beauty school when I met her. So she said, when you graduate, you know, come and see me and, you know, we'll talk. And so when I when Knapp's closed, one of my friends reminded me she invited me to come for an interview. I made an appointment with her and I went. She looked at my portfolio because at that time it was, you know, a book. And I had a
right,
portfolio which I created to take around. I just did like, you know, the photo shoots on your own. You got all the people together and then you did that. And when she was looking for something specific at the time. She was looking for a braider. Of course, I knew how to braid, but I wanted to cut and color
right,
natural hair. Cut and color, that's all I wanted to do. And she looked, she flipped
Right.
through, and she saw some braids. And she's like, "Oh, you know how to braid?" And I was like, "Yes, I know how to braid." And she's like, "Well, that's what I need. I need a braider." I was like, "But I don't want to braid." I'm like, "Are you sure? You sure you don't have anything else?" And she's like, "That's the position I have. And you do that, and then we can talk about moving on. But you have to do locking, braiding, and twisting. Natural hair,
So let's
turning
tell
head."
people. So yeah, oh, that you got it. So say it again. The name of Peggy Salon.
Peggy's salon was called Turning Head Salon in Harlem on 135th Street, and it was in the YMCA building, and it was Romare Beard's painting. He had like a mural on the wall, and it was, what do you call it? Like a landmark, So
Yeah.
we were in this space, a very creative space, and everybody in there. I mean, I had a ball in there. I learned so much, and it's just being in the atmosphere of where I wanted to go. Because remember, at 16, I was like, I want to work for Essence Magazine. And then
Right.
here's Peggy, who is a supermodel, who's been on the cover of every magazine. So whether I wanted to braid or not was not the issue. I was going to work there.
Right.
I had to put myself in
Right.
a place where I knew my dreams could come true one day. One
It,
day it would come true.
yes. 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 So really interesting. And I was just talking about this last night because I was in Harlem. So the Turning Heads was in the Y in Harlem.
Yes.
My grandfather was the manager of that
Why?
Y of that
Wow.
Y for decades. My mom grew up in Harlem. My grandfather was his name was Sidney Henderson, and he was the manager of that Y.
Wow.
And my mom worked. There was a school in that Y. There was an alternative high school,
Yes.
and that was my mom's first teaching job when I was in elementary school.
Wow. Wow.
So
Yeah.
we used to go in that building all the time. So when I went to see Peggy, I did go. I think I was at L at the time when she opened that salon, and I went there, and I was just like, "Oh God, this building brings back so many
So many
memories." And I think my
memories.
grandfather was still alive at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really, really great memories. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a
Um.
great
So
place.
yeah. So how has the perception of natural hair changed? Because that was a time. How's it changed and evolved?
Well, in the 80s, and I will say the 70s, 80s, and even in the 90s, it was something that was not, I would say it wasn't a difficult choice. It wasn't something that we struggled with doing because we didn't care if society was telling us we couldn't do that. We were going to do it whether
Right.
it doesn't matter who's telling us what to do because we were working from
Right.
the journey and the spiritual side of it, I think, and all the
Mm-hmm.
cultural aspect of wearing your hair in like braids and locks and twists was just an evolution that was natural. It wasn't forced. You know
Right.
what I mean? So when, and I know this wasn't all over the country, it was mainly in the East
No.
Coast, mainly in the East Coast, mainly in
Yes.
New York and DC, basically. And everybody,
Maybe Philly.
yes, Philly. Yes, Philly for sure, because braids were really big in Philly. And just like artistically wearing your hair was something, especially in the 90s and the hip hop era, was
Right.
just more of artistic freedom of wearing your hair, and
Right.
everyone embraced it who were natural always. Maybe they pressed their hair and then they braided it. They've been braiding for a long time. Had an easier transition of trying the other styles like the twisting and the coiling and all the African styles that we simulated and created into a more modern technique.
Right.
You know what I mean? And in those days, we always recognized, we understood the history of where the styles came from, and we always recognized and gave acknowledgement to the technique that we were lending ourselves to recreate at the time. So for back then, I feel like it was just a natural progression from the 60s, from the afros and the cornrows, to now
Right.
freely express ourselves without any barriers in our community. But I mean, I was a hairstylist,
Right.
so I could wear my hair anyway. Nobody was gonna, say anything to me, except for when I started working in white owned salons in different areas of town, like Soho and Tribeca and Chelsea. Then when I would go to like banks and different places, I would see the difference of when I would wear my hair maybe in a weave versus braids, or even just my natural coily fro, or my
Right.
curl and go, or my wash and go. So as it developed into this, I say maybe third wave of the movement, of the texture
Okay.
movement. I mean, there's waves of it, because
Right.
it already started in the '60s, and from out of the pressing and the Black Panther movement and things like that, to evolving to the
Right.
'90s, where everybody was trying everything. The hip hop, the jazz
Right.
community, the neo soul with the Philly and the jazz artists,
Right.
and the Fugees and all of the hip hop artists, and then the Kid and Play, and all the different styles. It was
Right.
expressive, and it was expressive with creativity and entertainment. And so, as far as the entertainers gravitating to it, that is the cultural movement, where others would easily simulate that generation. And they were,
Right.
fierce, the X's. The X's had the opportunity to walk through the door, because our generation
Right.
opened it up. So we might have had a little,
Yes.
turbulence, because our parents gave us the opportunity, and then they just walked through it and like knocked it down. you know. So I feel like now it's more of, they actually don't know the history of the movement, the generation now that's wearing their hair in all these
Yeah.
beautiful styles, and they take styles and they just put a name on it now, with not understanding. So Senegalese twist is now passion twist, but it has a different curl pattern, because they have more choices of actual texture.
Right.
They have texture now in all of the hair. All the synthetic hair and human hair
Mm-hmm.
has an array, an abundance of texture that we didn't have. We had to use straight hair and make it
Right.
into something, where now it's so easily accessible and acceptable,
Right.
right? So the generation, and I know my nieces don't even know the history of some things. They're always asking me, like, how did that evolve? How did that come to happen? And they're in their 20s. And I'm like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
you guys really don't know how this movement happened. And with the
Right. So.
internet, and obviously the YouTubers and the bloggers and the vloggers, there was a resurgence, or a resurgence of the movement, but claimed by them. It was claimed by that
This is really
generation,
important.
because of the millions of them on YouTube, right? And blogging.
Right.
So
Right.
a lot of them really believe that it
Ooh.
started with them. And I mean,
Right.
if we're not telling them
Well, that's why
the
this
history.
series is important, because it is, you know, the journeys that and the history that, just from your experience, but I mean, I'm going to be talking to a couple more people, is so rich, right?
Mhm.
And so, and as I said earlier, if you didn't live in New York, if you don't know some of these names, but there are people who do,
Yeah.
People, and this is when, kind of Essence was, the work that Mickey did
Yes.
with the hair in
Yes.
Essence was really like driving the country. Those
Yes.
natural
Yes.
hairstyles,
Hmm. And it was
the and I
deliberate.
and that, occasionally it was a very deliberate and it was very well executed, and it really people looked to the people who didn't have that cultural
Hmm.
space, that cultural example in their town, and then had it represented in the magazine so that they could
Yes.
say, okay, this is what I want. This looks good. This style, and
Yes.
the inventiveness with
Hmm.
which those styles were executed
Yes.
was incredible. And and it's sad that magazines don't have that kind of weight anymore.
Yes.
And so visually there is a, kind of like it's kind of like comes and goes. It's like a little minute here, a minute there.
Yes.
Nothing is sustainable. So
Yes.
you can
Yes.
find something, you put it on your Pinterest board, but it doesn't have the same like cultural weight.
Yes. I mean, it's just so, the internet has taken over, so everything is put on there. But when you see it in a magazine, for example, I worked freelancing at Essence for like 15 years straight because I was always called upon to do, at the time, color, locks, and twists. That was who I was for Essence: locking, twisting, and color always. So I got the opportunity to freelance there like every other month. I was doing a photo shoot every 2 months, every 3 months, doing a photo shoot, being included in, any books that came out that really drove the culture. And it was always a variety of styles, and everyone in, of course, New York, who had a salon that was known, was nationally known now because of Essence. So the clientele that I and everyone got at that time were coming from all over the world because of Essence, you know. And this was the impact that Essence had at the time. And there were relaxer styles and there were natural styles,
Yeah,
but it was a mix of everything, and it was so authentic and beautiful, you know. And I mean, I was in there for a long time, and so many changes
yeah,
happened with the beauty department. But once you get the call, you create, and once you create,
right.
then you bring the style, the next movement of what is happening in in the streets, basically on the ground of your salon,
Yeah,
because you're
yeah, that
creating every day, and you're bringing it now to a space that is going to be seen everywhere, so that it was a beautiful time. I mean, I just had a run that was unbelievable, really. So it's really, if you look
yeah, I'm
back.
gonna dig it. Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. I used to do a lot of freelance. I was freelance writing at the time. It was after I left L. I freelanced for Essence a lot, and I remember interviewing you, Pamela Farrell from NDC,
Yeah.
like Locks and Chop. I did a lot of beauty hair stories back in the day, but so it brings back really good memories.